Hi everybody. Yes, it has been commented. I sigh a lot. Anyway, I was just going to drop in just because it's something to do. I know a lot of people are busy or doing other more important things. I've been quite ill all week. In fact, very ill, but and I'm still not feeling great. So I don't know how long I'm going to do this for. I'll probably keep it fairly short because the live thing after the event is maybe not for everyone. But anyway, I'm just going to pull a few vinyl finds and also going to talk about falling in love with Prog again. And we'll touch a little bit upon that later. Anyway, let's just go for it. These are just some of the sort of things I've found, picked up over the last few days. This album particularly, I think, was surprising. It was a bit of a letdown. Rufus Thomas live, doing the push and pull, but PJ. Maybe not the most flattering photo. And there he is pulling his faces on the rear. The first track here is a 12-minute monologue. And then you've got these wonderfully titled tracks like Ooh Poo Perdoo, Old MacDonald Had a Farm, and which is 6.5 minutes long and is hardly, doesn't even go into that song particularly, that nursery rhyme or whatever it may be. It just sort of touches in and out of it, but he's sort of mainly just nattering. Then you got Walking the Dog, and you got Do the Funky Chicken. There's some good funky stuff on here, but God, you have to wade through some to get there. Anyway, I thought I'll give it a go. It was £1. I thought I'll give it a go, and it's disappointing. Yeah, his studio album I showed recently, from 1972. That was an excellent album. This is not. I do like to say it as I see it or hear it. Picked up a copy of The Charlatans, Some Friendly. Now, Tim Burgess has done a fantastic book where people send him all around the world. When he's traveling, they give him tasks to find a particular record, which they recommend that he listens to and he finds. And it's a little. Each chapter is a one record that he's managed to find, or he's looking for different places around the world, record shops and whatnot, and what he feels about them. And it's a really good little book. I highly recommend it. He writes very, very well. Some Friendly, The Charlatans, 1992. I'm saying 92, yeah, whatever, who cares? Very famous with our first single, which is not on here. For me, they sort of, they were at that particular time, they sound of that particular time, and they haven't really kind of, after this album, I don't think, they kind of maintained a trajectory. It was all a bit samey and slightly maybe diminishing returns to my ears, but that's just me maybe. This isn't the sort of stuff I listen to all the time, but sometimes, for a bit of nostalgia, a bit of I remember being in the alternative discos and doing the flailing long hair thing, but, and people sitting down to James and all that stuff, silliness when you're like 20, 21. Anyway, there you go. It's Unfriendly. Let's have a look. This I already have, so I now have two. This is just a lovely, lovely album, though, and I know it's shown quite often, but it's a lovely record. And I think, a lot of psych albums, I call it psych. It's a pop album, really, with psychedelic flourishes, just because of that was the kind of the effects and the studio trickery of the time. But it's a nice little record. There's one or two slightly weaker moments, but when you consider that they were 17 and 19 when they wrote and recorded this, it is quite phenomenal. Their songwriting prowess is unbelievable. Most bands of that period were doing cover versions and maybe did one or two songs of their own. But to have an entire album, all of your own material, at that age is quite astounding. And it's obviously showing where they were going to go and the promise that they had. And this is a great album. It's a great, great album. If you're in the mood for a sort of twee pop psych, but you see, there's something different about this. This has that kind of those melodies and that kind of emotive quality, which other bands did touch on to some degree in the psychedelic period. Yeah, it's a wonderful album. As I say, I've got it already, but when you see it, it's a quid. You think I need to buy it again, and just pass it on or whatever. Yeah, I'm not still feeling not great, but I'm feeling much better than I was. Anyway, yeah, that's a lovely, lovely record. And as you say, it's one of those, I think you can play all the way through. There's none of those moments where you think, oh, I need to just pick up the needle here. Great little record. Now, these are just random finds to begin with before we get into some bits and bobs of prog. Oh, and some singles. Let's have a look at these. God. I'm actually not showing everything here, I'm just showing bits and bobs. But when you sort of find a sort of collection of stuff you wouldn't normally buy, this is a sort of pop folk thing, Fishbowl and Zorn. 1971. But it is, it's got some lovely little tracks on here. It's not a great album, it's an okay album. It's perhaps slightly too middle of the road to make it, something you're going to go, oh, wow, I don't need to investigate that. But there are some nice things on here. And I just found a stack of stuff. I wouldn't normally, but they're all in really good condition. And it's not the kind of thing I'd normally go, oh, yeah, I'll have that. But when they're so dirt cheap, you're going to pick it up and give it a go. And that's how I find a lot of interesting stuff and think, wow, I've never investigated that. Or sometimes you get these obscure albums. This also was amongst them. Lighthouse, Sweet Feeling. Again, this is a psychedelic, definitely psychedelic. Some of this is really very psychedelic. However, it's marred again. It's one of those, it's a fairly cheap album. You can get it for 15, 20 quid. It's just a 3-star album because it's marred by a really long piece on side 1 called Places on Faces 4 Blue Carpet Traces. I mean, just ridiculous. And all it is, I can't stand this kind of thing, is there's a nice little riff or intro, and then everyone is just soloing. So every member of the band has a bit of a solo, and you, okay, enough already, this is boring. You could have just completely obliterated it or cut it in half and given us a proper song. However, saying that, there are some really good psychedelic tracks on here. Presence of Presence is a good one. Chest Fever is good. Could You Be Concerned? And it has a cover of the Beatles' A Day in the Life to end the album on. And you think, how can anyone, top A Day in the Life? But they've actually done a really interesting version of it. It's fundamentally follows the same kind of pattern, but their instrumentation and arrangements and the psychedelic sound is actually really quite good. So this is definitely something I will keep because, those tracks will be played. It's just interesting to hear that. It's just a very unusual thing to cover. I can't think off the top of my head if anyone else has covered A Day in the Life. But it's quite a bold thing to do. I'm sure actually at the time in the 60s, there probably were a few. It's a bold thing to do. But it actually works. But because we're all so familiar with the originals, it's one of those, it's like, do I like it? Should this be happening? Yeah. Anyway. I already had this as well. this was in fantastic condition. Gatefold original. Again, this is one of those albums that, how many times do I say this? It doesn't do a whole lot for me. I know people seem to hold it in high regard. For me, it's not always, it's just not quite that. It sounds a bit, I'm going to probably upset a few people here. I think it's a bit sluggish in places. I don't know. It's maybe it's a sort of, I don't know what I was expecting when I first heard it. I remember thinking, I was really looking forward to it. And I thought, well, maybe I'll like it more now. But actually, I'm still not quite connecting with it. Some albums, I suppose, it may just be me. I don't know what anyone else thinks or what you think. But it's one of those for me. Not quite there. I think I may have to give it another listen. Try and just sit back and listen to it and just not have any kind of preconceptions or preconceived notions from the past or whatever. Just give it another go. Let me know if you agree or disagree. That would be great. That's part of the fun of these things, with the interaction. Anyway, yeah, let me know about it. I've seen this before. You find these sorts of things. Wally, probably, because it's not English, it's probably volley or value. Hi Al, are you a tailor? Tinker Tailor, Soldier Sailor. I think if I would have been any, I would have been a soldier. I was just thinking about different plays on the words, but I don't want to go there. This is 1974, which for me, here I go again, it's not a great year. I tell YouTube, no, she's out. Okay. It's one of those. It's 1974, so it's. I'm getting back to the point. It's a bit weak. Yeah, I think you're right. It's for tailors only. Exactly. That's exactly it. That's the only reason. Let me tell you, YouTube now. She's out. Ooh, nice. Anyway, 1974. Yes, yeah, I do get it. I'm kind of losing my track. I've completely gone off my one. Okay, right. As it's 1974, for me, it's a bad year in music. Yeah, please throw your brickbats my way. It's just a bad year for music. It's like, I think prog was kind of taking over. It was getting more kind of sort of cheesy, I can't think off the top of my head. Was that a good album in 1974? I was going to have loads of people go, what about this one? What about that? There's just something about it. 72 was a fantastic year for music. 71, 72. 73, for me, it starts getting a little bit, And 74, I don't know what happened there, And 75, my goodness, it wasn't until 77, I think, that things picked up again. Here's what I'm saying. Oh, I love all this. I just can't think off the top of my head. 1974. I suppose in my mind, I'm just considering things like prog and rock and stuff. Anyway, this is one of those. It's a bit pedestrian. It's not all that, It's an easy record to find, but it's not all that. It's got good moments, but it's not, it's not. I was happy to find it, but how often will I play that? Let's have a look at this. I was happy with this album. Please tell me some good albums from 74. Okay. I was really happy to find this. It's not easy to find Mandrill albums over here. We do occasionally see them just outside, I think it's called. There's the one I really want to get. And this really, yeah, that's it. I didn't think much of it. And I don't know why. It's one of those, it's kind of held in high regard. Neil Young on the pitch. Fantastic. Yes, of course. See, I'm just considering. I was talking about prog. Really, that was what was in my mind because we're going to get onto prog, and that's a great album. One of my all-time favorites. Probably, I'm going to say. I know you don't have favorites, and even though you did show a favorite the other day, 1974. That is one of my top albums of all time. Gene Clark. Yeah, I was really happy to find this. This is a fantastic. When you put the needle on this, side one. Exactly. Rock Bottom, another one of my top 5 albums. Top 10, you know, most. Oh, I love it. I love all this. Okay. Yes, big star in this country. There's a twofer. Came out, it was a twofer, didn't it? What we got here? Yeah, Mandrill. Again, I loved this. When I first put this on, it was like, yes, this is what I want to hear. I know some of these songs anyway. You know, it's 8 is High, Fence Walk, Get It All, Hang Loose, and then it's just, then it slows down with Symphonic Revolutions. But then side 2 comes on, and it's like, oh, you know, it just doesn't sustain. It just doesn't sustain it. They get a bit mellower and a little bit, not maybe the best selection after the fantastic. Genius, yes. That was it. That was perfect. 1974 Waterloo. What a beautiful moment that was in the history of music, which it was actually. Yeah. So side 2 tailed off big time for me. It was disappointing. So it's like the best of Mandrill and, you know, the rest and, you know, the other scraps of Mandrill on side 2. Of course, you know, that's an opinion, but hey. Oh, this is a funny looking album. This is, if anyone who could look like Nick Drake but have none of the talent, have absolutely none of the talent, none of the originality. I mean, again, this was in a collection, so I just, well, I've never seen it. You never know. You never know. There may be something interesting. Oh, Veedon Fleece. I love it album. I actually saw it and I left it in the shop. I don't know why I did that. But anyway, yeah, this is just, you think, oh, look, I look like Nick Drake. You can look like someone but have none of the talent, and this is kind of what's happening here. He looks less like him there. He looks like the guy from those, if you're in the UK, those films about the milkman and window cleaner, Confessions of a Window Cleaner, that kind of stuff. Yeah, he probably wasn't a seaside kind of guy. I don't know if he ever went to the seaside. It's probably where this guy went wrong, you know. Anyway, this is really, really, really average pop rock, middle of the road rubbish. Anyway, I like to kind of show junk alongside good stuff. Now this could be contentious. This was, I thought, was a really nice find. I mean, it's absolutely spotless. Hello, Ben. Yes, another one from Randy. 74 was a great year, wasn't it? Anyway, again, this could be contentious. I thought, yes, well, I found this. Although, you see, you know, it's another one of those. It was a quid. It was amongst, I suppose, people just, it's just a country, amongst loads of country stuff. So maybe someone had bought it originally thinking it was a purely country record and by the cover. But I remember when I first heard this, I was disappointed again. I mean, their first album, I think, is fantastic. You know, that kind of, I've heard it sort of described, the guitar work is very liquid and fluid, and the wonderful the way they play. And but this, I don't know, it's side 1, especially when it's all in bits. You know, who do you love, when do you love, where you love, how you love, which do you love. It was just a little bit like, oh, it's hard going. It's not good enough. It was just a bit mediocre. Side 2, I think, was where it kicks off. I mean, it's some good tracks on there if you're into that sort of country psych. And, you know, this is a famous album. But, I mean, please disagree with me if you think this is the best album in the world. I mean, That'd be fantastic. But I just don't rate it again. I just don't. I thought, when I found out, okay, this is going to be good. I'm going to maybe listen to. I haven't listened to it for about 15 years, but it's the same thing. A bit like the album earlier. It's just not quite where I want it to be. Yeah, you see, this is the thing. I do think a lot of it is when you hear it, it's what mood you're in and stuff like that. And I do have a problem with sitting and listening to a record. Although that, as I'm coming up to, that sort of changed yesterday somewhat. So I think they'll change the way I am with this album, I think. And I hope it'll change the way I am with a lot of records, because I've been very, very sort of up and down and not enjoying albums as much as I used to, not enjoying the experience as much as I used to. Of actually sitting and listening to an album all the way through. Yeah, it's an awful cover art. Yeah, so something changed yesterday, and I actually sat and listened to a record all the way through, and it's kind of it's done something. It's kind of cleared something out of the air, if you like. I don't know. This was all of it is also all the time. Yeah, okay. This was a nice little find, actually. It's a very rare, pretty rare compilation on the Sarah label. Now, this particular label were in Bristol in the UK, and they dealt with sort of twee pop, sort of indie pop, indie rock, that kind of stuff. And they're not easy to come by at all. So I was really chuffed to find this. You can see some of the bands here. I mean, a lot of them are. Yeah, I think I understand, Rand. I mean, sometimes you can buy so much and it just isn't the same. Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, it's good to see you. How are you? Yeah, I get it, Rand. I really do. The music drive is there in some ways, but it's not in others. It's like a lot of the time it's about getting the records and getting it, but actually the act and art of listening is kind of gets lost sometimes when you consuming so much. In terms of buying, in terms of purchasing, and sometimes you can get kind of caught in a I don't know, it's like a kind of trap almost where you can't sort of get out of it. It takes something to break it out. And yesterday, as I'm going to come on to it in a minute, it sort of happened for me. But you can see the bands on the back here. I mean, there's a lot of very small fry, obscure bands, but this is good stuff. It's really good stuff. This is a sort of Big Star 1000 album. Yeah, that's the kind of thing he'd be showing. He'd know all about this, I'm sure. Okay. This I have not opened. Yeah, I wouldn't normally show an album I haven't opened. I just picked it up this morning. This is Sam Gellaitry, or Gellaitry. It's a very difficult word to describe. Escapism 3. And I mean, look at this. It's a very thin cover, and you see, I don't know if you can see that, it's sealed. And because it's a cutout, I mean, it just is warping I hope, not the record. Hello, how are you, Remus? Nice to see you. But you can see what it does to the cover. I really do not like modern packaging. I don't see the point of having all of this. I also don't like the fact that most records nowadays have a kind of black labels that automatically pick up fingerprints. The covers as well, they kind of use that slightly matte sheen, if you like, if that's not a contradiction in terms, for the paper and it tends to crease, and then you find, yeah, I mean, I always use a scalpel and take it down. It's from my modelling days, as in, yeah, it doesn't look good. The record itself feels flat, but I think it's because there's all these slats. You see, this is a very thin cover, and it's the inner sleeve will leave windows here, so I think that's partly it. But this particular, I've lost my train of thought there. Anyway, this particular record, not male modelling. However, maybe nowadays in the mature, M&S catalogues. Yeah, I will do. But I won't do it right this second because the scalpels are upstairs. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, this actually is a really interesting record, and it tends to sell for a fair bit now. It's like how can I describe it? It's quite a unique album. It's instrumental, and it's an element of kind of dub in it. It's a really difficult thing to describe. This is a fantastically unique and original record. I haven't heard anything like it. So I was really glad. I picked a few up this morning. This was one of them. And when I came home, I thought I'd investigate it because I didn't know what it was. I thought it just looked interesting. And I actually went back to a shop and bought another one because there was two. Because I think I'll pass one along to someone, assuming it's okay. The record itself, the music is really interesting. Sam Gellaitry, I suppose. Gellaitry, of course. The Boys of a VC Calendar, yeah, do that. I don't really think I'd be in it somehow. Anyway. This is one I put on Instagram earlier, which I found. This is Ibaye, or Ibaye or something. Almost like a Rear Window concert. Yes. Yes, I have in my youth, I remember throwing records around the street. I remember Pickety Witch album, which is absolutely awful. I used to buy everything in my naive days from 1971 because I knew that there was a lot of good music there. And Pickety Witch was absolutely awful. And a friend and I, used to use it as a frisbee and made a couple of singles and trashed them down the street as well. But anyway, yeah, here we go. Look, this is interesting packaging. These are twins. The dad is Miguel Diaz, a famous Cuban percussionist. They're French-Cuban. Obviously, they're not identical twins. The eyes are very different. But, it comes apart like this. On one side, there's some pics, family pics. And that's the name of the band. It's a Y. So it's Ibaye, I suppose, or something like that. They're French-Cuban. It's a really interesting album. Now, one of the tracks sounded a little bit like Bjork. This is actually, looking at reviews, a very, very good album, but the pressing is not meant to be particularly good. I haven't heard it. I've just listened to some stuff online. I bought this morning. And it is really interesting, very experimental. The time signatures, the arrangements, nothing like you'd expect when you look at the cover. Very unique sounding album. There's a lot of modern records that kind of promise a lot but don't necessarily deliver to my ears. But this particular group are really quite interesting. So I recommend checking that out. It's Ibeyi. Just have a listen to it. I mean, maybe the vocals will be a little bit too kind of saccharine maybe in places for some, but also they go into their own native tongue as well. I mean, it's a really interesting sound, that, and I'm sure it's going to grow on me. Anyway, let me see if I can. I'm not going to show everything. It'd be all flame and day if I did that. Okay, let's get on to a couple of other things here. That mini experience yesterday. Now, earlier in the week, this is my falling in love with Prog again. Yeah, this is my falling in love with Prog again. Now, I found this earlier in the week. Gentle Giant's Octopus. And I thought, I'm going to sit and listen to an album Now, I don't, I through various samplers and comps and things. This is a CD comp, Time Machine, Vertigo retrospective. I used to be heavily into collecting the Vertigo label. Although a lot of them I found they kind of just disappeared down the years. And so I had a long period about 15 years ago where I was just buying CDs. So a lot of stuff I bought on CD. If I see them on vinyl nowadays, I will buy them, but I'm not paying wads of cash for stuff, 150, 200 quid, etc. I didn't, there's the album after this, for Taste, acquiring the Taste, it didn't quite do it for me. I think some of it was a bit laboured. So I wasn't necessarily looking forward to listening to this all the way through, but if I'm going to just listen to this. And it kind of did something, it sort of changed something, because I made a point of it. I turned the record over and listened to the whole of the other side. And I thought, you know what? I enjoyed that experience again. Way, way back when I first was collecting music and stuff, progressive rock was the thing that kind of caught my ear. And I used to like being able to sit down and just absorb it and get into it, and loved all the different changes and aspects of it. I didn't always I never got into bands like Yes. I just could never get into it. It was too, I think the key was too high for me, the singing. I didn't really like his singing, and I found some of it overly pretentious. Yeah, no, that is a great record. It's actually, I think, it's got one song on one side tab, and The Ocean is one long piece, I believe. I've got it down there. Yeah, I think it's a great record. It's one of those that grows on you as well. It's not something that I automatically think, I put it at the top of my prog list, but I think as soon as you play it, you think, oh wow, I think I forgot how good this record was. It's kind of one of those, a little bit like a sleeper. Everyone knows of it, but not necessarily plays it or mentions it. It's a good record. But yeah, it was good to experience that again, that feeling of, it kind of awoke that kind of feeling that I used to have. And I enjoyed going back to that and refinding it, if you like. After so many years of trying all sorts of different music, experiencing lots of music and learning about stuff, it was kind of good to get back to something that kind of which connected me with music in the first place, if you like. It's the thing that did it for me. So this album, although there are a couple of places you think, oh, come on, mate. The second track in particular, when they're trying too hard to sound like medieval or something, well, it's all right. But there's some really good, strong material on here. And I enjoyed that process again of listening, because you don't know what's coming next with progressive rock generally. And that's what I suppose it is. So after that, I just decided to listen to some more, and it's my slightly ragged copy, sleeve anyway, of this album. What a fantastic side one this is. The intensity, hello Rob, good to see you. The intensity and power of side one of this album is, it's just unsurpassed, I think, in progressive rock. You listen to this, it's like, people listen to King Crimson, and yeah, the intensity of the first side of their first album is quite shocking. Although you do have I Talk to the Wind, which kind of, for me, is like, whatever. That's going to upset a few people because it's a nice song, etc. But for me, I love it when they can keep the flow through, and it doesn't always work particularly as a flow. Whereas this, the power, even though there are quieter moments on it just is incredible. And when you consider that they didn't have a bass for some of those songs, let's have a Killer Emperor and Lost. Yeah, House of No Door actually has no bass on it. And when you see them live, if you watch YouTube and you actually see just the three of them playing live on stage, absolutely incredible. Back in 1970 and 71, when they were releasing this stuff, just amazing. See, I always used to think Paul and Hearts was my favourite. And I still really stand by Lemmings and Man Erg, especially. But side one of this, I mean, it was just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. It's just some, God, it's really hard to describe the strength of the sound that came out of the speakers listening to this. And again, it was an enjoyable experience of just letting it play and just the changes happening and re-experiencing prog. You know, Bill at the vinyl verse is, you go, wow, that's what I've been telling you all for years. Now, for me, this is probably slightly, I don't know, let me know. This is perhaps where progressive rock started. Now, this is a concept album, of course, but progressive rock is concept, generally. A lot of bands can get, kind of lumbered in the progressive rock vein, which is like Soft Machines. I don't think they're progressive rock at all. I think they're very clever and arty, art rock, if you like, and then they kind of go into jazz rock. But progressive for me tends to be, well, this is how I perceive it. It's about a concept, it's about a story, or it's about the imagination, and it's about other worlds or something like that. And I think, this obviously being a concept album about SF Sorrow, is perhaps where the kind of progressive ideas started, because you could have a whole album devoted to one theme. And, this is probably for me where it all began. These are sort of more short songs, of course, but then people, started to piece these pieces together and start to change the shape and sound of music as it was being heard. As I mentioned before with Soft Machine, when they went into the studio, into the Peel sessions, Robert Wyatt sat there writing his tracks. And the one thing that he mentioned was you could play for as long and as loud as you wanted to on Radio 3. You didn't have to stick with 2-minute songs. And so things started to change in radio. And as a result, when they get giving more space, there was more space to fill. And how do we do it? Well, we can build and we can build and we can build. And I think that's some of the great things about progressive rock. You get that build and that kind of expansion, which, obviously I think eventually went too far and became kind of bloated almost, 3 triple LP albums and stuff like that. And it all went a little bit too far, perhaps. But, when it was its peak, which is for me some of the earlier albums, I don't think you can top some of that sound. It's amazing, really. Again, this is not a progressive rock album at all, really. But this is a similar thing where some of the tracks were getting longer. There was a kind of a way to experience more, a way to kind of, express more about feelings and about life and about other concepts, other ideas. Well, this is very much more kind of down to earth, if you like. Again, there's these sorts of bands, they're starting to fill out, starting to experiment more. I mean, the first song, you got a 30-second kind of drum solo as an intro, and then some of the pieces on here are very, very expressive and just different. They just almost sound like they sound like they started halfway through. Some of them, they're so complete and compact. I mean, Cressida were another band who may be are called progressive. I've got the CD of the first album here. These are all very short pieces. They tend to be called progressive. But that's probably because this album, Asylum, has longer pieces and they are more progressive in that sense. This is far more just shorter songs. But again, it's because of the progressive nature of the way they were and the way they were thinking, they kind of get lumped in. But there's something about the way they do it, which makes it elevates it above normal kind of regular pop or rock or whatever at the time. Anyway, this is just a nice little King Crimson Epitaph. This is a 5 CD set. And this is when they're at their peak, of course, when they'd just done 21st Century Schizoid Man, In the Court of Crimson King, BBC radio sessions, etc., and live stuff from that period. I mean, just great to hear how that encapsulated that sound, and it was so tight and kind of ready to go, and it exploded upon the world. You know, people were like, whoa, what's going on here? You know, it changed things again. That first album, I think, obviously everyone holds it in high esteem. It is, in a way, a game changer. It was progressive, it was conceptual, and it kind of inspired so many bands, you know, as a result, really. And of course, the cover is immediately eye-catching. So I think that always helps, because it draws you in straight away. Or it terrifies you and you run screaming from the shops. Yeah, this Pato album is a failed attempt to be anything as striking, I believe. It's a really poor cover, I think. When you consider what you could do with record covers, you know, it's not the greatest in the world, but this is a really nice little album. Hello, how are you? I hope you're well. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling on here. I'm sort of going off one. I'm still feeling a bit ill. I'm beginning to feel it. I'm just sort of rambling on. I've shown some of these before, of course. The Greatest Show on Earth, one of the greatest covers on earth. See, that's what you could do with a record cover. You need to go to hypnosis, mate. That's what they should have told. It probably was hypnosis. But anyway, yeah, fantastic. Not the best. I think a lot of albums on Harvest, but this is a UK copy, so it hasn't got the original Harvest in it. A lot of albums on Harvest and on Vertigo are automatically called progressive rock, which are not. They really aren't. You know, it's the same with Deerham. You know, we associate these labels, less so with Deerham, with progressive music. But, and so they get all kind of lumped together. This gets lumped with progressive rock, but it's not really. One or two pieces are slightly longer, a bit more adventurous and exploratory. And it's a good album. It's not a great album, but it's a good album. There's some good stuff on here, but it takes a long time to get going. But again, you see, it's not necessarily progressive. It just gets lumped in because it's on the same label. Barclay James Harvest, a symphonic rock band with progressive elements. Yeah, it is an awesome cover. It's one of the best covers of all time for me. I mean, that is like, wow, you know. There's a couple I would really like to get hold of, Bakerloo, I think that, and Quatermass. I still have not got the original Quatermass. It's 30 odd years. But you can get the cheap one, the cheap reissue. But the cover is nowhere near as striking. This is a lovely cover as well. Barclay James Harvest. Beautiful, wonderful music with definitely progressive tones, as I say. And it was just good again to listen to some of this stuff. Now that's a good question. I was thinking about it earlier. I was going to show progressive bands from Germany. I thought, it's a tough one because there's a distinctly different sound, I think, from Germany. Almost slightly more, it's probably the wrong word, but more industrial. So, you know, I mean, I was considering Amandur being quite progressive in some ways, but they're not. They haven't got the same kind of. They're too loose, really. So I found that quite difficult. I was thinking about doing it. I thought, well, I don't know. You know, I thought I'd just try. I'll probably stick with the UK ones here, in general, and maybe I'll think about that for another day. Is there anything you consider progressive, Alex, from the German bands? Be interesting to hear. You know, it's a tough one. Another progressive album, but because of the concept and because of the time changes and the music and everything else, again, it's the same. Oh, they're from Oldham. Of course they are, yeah. Not many bands from Oldham. I say stuff like that and people go, yeah, there is. Yeah, another one I've shown before, but this is just a really solid progressive rock album. An early one, 1969, I believe. Yeah, an early one. So it doesn't have the kind of highfalutin kind of madness and spiral carpets, of course. I've seen them. I saw them live. Yeah, it doesn't have the. It's a bit silly in some of the concept, but again, it has that power which kind of carries it through. That yes, Nectar I would put in as a progressive German band. But it has that edge again. It has that thing which takes it another level. It takes it above the norm, and it has that exploratory kind of. This is where it's beginning. So they're trying to find what's the word? It's almost like it's not naive, but there's a sort of naivety to it every time. And I suppose an excitement at the time. Like we can explore, we can do more, we can actually challenge ourselves and create something which is. And I think that's partly the drug culture of the time, because when move out of our face and you're sitting back and you don't want to move, you want also to be taken somewhere. You want the music to kind of to travel with you, if you like. And I think progressive rock in particular, obviously Hawkwind weren't progressive, but there was a similar kind of. They were progressive ultimately, in the terms of the way they explored sound and explored audio. That's that sense of taking you somewhere. So from my dim and distant past, I enjoyed that aspect of it. So my friends and I, we would sit back, whatever we may have been doing, and just enjoy the albums and enjoy the concept and enjoy the feel of it, and to be taken somewhere. So it becomes more than just you put a record on and you sit in there paranoid about everybody. You just go with it, and you Land of Grey and Pink and Side 2, 9 Feet Underground, those sorts of songs, those long suites of pieces, we just take you places. And that was kind of, I think that's part of why progressive music happened. I mean, these things are so symbiotic, they just all happen together. I think that's part of it. I also think that was a time when Lord of the Rings became very popular. So the fantasy element and the Eastern kind of mysticism and the ideas of otherworldliness, if you like, and fantasy became more kind of popular and became something which people were attracted to. And all of these things kind of came together. And you can't really, express that kind of thing in a 2 or 3 minute song, not successfully. And you can be taken on an adventure, a bit like Bilbo Baggins gets taken on an adventure. You can be taken on an adventure too when you're listening to a progressive rock record. And I think that's probably all of those things kind of came together at the same time. And I think when kind of drugs and things went out of the picture and were less of an influence, perhaps, that's when the music became a bit more pompous and a bit more a bit Rick Wakeman, if you like. Okay. And just I'll finish on a few singles because I'm rambling on. And I listened to this. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I didn't really have time to listen to all of the records, but I listened to The Knife again. I just thought, wow, what a great track. I loved it when I first heard it about 35 years ago, or however old I was. Yeah, around that. I loved it then. It was just so good to hear it again. And I've played it on and off down the years. With that kind of mini breakthrough moment yesterday, it kind of just opened prog to my ears again. I was like, where have you been for so long? I've put it on the back seat in a way, and I've been listening to a lot of different kinds of music, exploring all sorts of different stuff. But progressive rock, it still has a home, a home in the heart, as they say. And so it was really good to hear it. And I think I'll probably listen to it a little bit more later. Anyway, I won't bother showing these other ones. I'll be here all day. I will briefly show a few of these. What have we got here? There's a few other prog albums that are worth listening to. T2, You'll All Work Out in Boomland. Clark Hutchinson. That's more kind of raga-esque. Yes, well, they actually coined it themselves, I believe. I think Faust obviously had that track, Krautrock. I did remember reading somewhere that it was them who called it that to begin with. But then that may have been expedient for various reasons. But yeah, this is a really unusual album. I don't know if you've heard this, Alex, but I think this would be right up your street. The improvisation on modal scale, impromptu in E minor, textures in 3/4 time, improvisation on an Indian scale. Um, that is a very unusual record, and I think you would probably like that because it's not prog rock at all. This is, as I say, it's got Indian, it's got raga textures, there's long solos. A very unusual record. A equals mh squared by Clark Hutchinson. I think you might enjoy that. A few other proggy things. Clear Blue Sky. This was actually, I think they were all teenagers. They were 16, 17 when they recorded that. 15 even. Powerful prog. Less exploratory. Another pat over there. This is Kaleidoscope's White Faced Lady. It was never released. This is a Japanese double. But these guys, they really knew their stuff. They were fantastic. More of a gentle sound, bucolic in places perhaps, but also kind of fairy tale, quirky, interesting band. Okay, I did have another few there, but where I put them. Oh, here's From Home to Home. This was on Vertigo. Another really interesting record. Okay, I'm just going to finish off with a few singles. Just thinking of those other stuff here. I know that people like Rob would enjoy. I did have some somewhere. Found a copy of Somebody to Love. That's a nice little record. Jefferson Airplane, not one you see every day. With She Has Funny Cars, and wow, it sounds good on 45. I've got White Rabbit. I thought I had this actually, but wow, it sounds good on 45. It just leaps out. You know. Sometimes the albums just don't sound as good. I very rarely see this picture sleeve with Imagine, John Lennon. Very rare. There's a few slightly punkier things here. One of my favourites. Grip, yeah, by the Stranglers. Whoever had these was trying to sell them at ridiculous prices before he donated them. Probably gave up all hope. I mean, he had a copy of All Shook Up on 45 for 175 quid. He had a sticker on it for. This guy had no idea. Anyway, leave the £5 on this. You think, okay, borderline. Great track by that. Copy of 96 Tears, cover of Question Mark and the Mysterians, of course. This was quite a nice little find. Back to Zero. Again, he had 8 quid on this, which that's about its limit. Back to Back. This is a mod thing. A really unusual find, and a really good little single, that. Your Side of Heaven. Really nice. Yeah, they are killer, and I recommend seeking that out or checking it out. Back to Zero, Your Side of Heaven. This was a nice one. Oh, but did it have a picture sleeve? No. The Jerks. Get Your Woofing Dog Off Me. For a picture sleeve, that's quite a valuable record. I was just glad to get it finally into the collection. I've always sort of looked out for it. Great little punk single, that one. There's a bunch of Smith singles. Last Year, Take a Bow. I don't know why I'm showing these really. Boy with a Thorn in His Side. Oh, this one's an interesting one. The guy had put £500 test pressing, which it really isn't. The test pressing is completely different. So I don't know what he was thinking. He obviously didn't know much. But anyway, that's what Smith said. That joke isn't funny anymore. That's what I'd have been saying to him as well. Yeah, a couple of others, blah, blah. I'll just finish up with these three. If anyone else has anything else to say, that'd be great. Woman Capture Man, I showed these on Instagram, so I apologise. Ethiopians. There's loads of others I could have shown. Reggae in Your Jeggae by Dandy Livingston. And this is a nice one. This is an obscure single, Lois Lane, One Little Voice. Now, she did release an album, and she went on to do a lot of different records, but not under her name, but like for kids' things and nursery rhymes, all sorts of different things that she gave herself to. But yeah, this is unusual, never released. Sing to Me and One Little Voice. And every time I see a demo, I always go, oh, and then you find out it's someone really boring. But this is quite nice. I do like to find kind of girl singers, or as they call girl bands or whatever, on demos, because you just don't see them very often. And sometimes their songs can be quite charming and enjoyable. Okay, yes, I will be safe. And if anyone else has anything to say, that would be great. So I'll give you all about 10 seconds. So you're going to have to say it really quick. As I'm feeling kind of rough, so I'll probably say goodbye. Okay, no one's going to say anything. I will get off then. Thanks for popping by and enjoying the time together. I enjoyed it anyway. Although I did feel a bit most of it. Anyway, that's it. It's good to talk to you all, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers.